Welcome to Miami. We have completed the first ever Miami Grand Prix, and it was a bit of an interesting one, wasn't it? There was big kickoff events, PR events all over the place. They went all out promoting this race, and man, it was everywhere. Everything I saw was about how great Miami is, how wonderful this race is going to be. They went hard on the PR. But did things live up to the occasion? Let's check in with qualifying first, as usual. And the first thing to note here is Esteban Ocon did not take part in qualifying due to a crash in practice, requiring his whole car to be rebuilt. He did thankfully race the car, but he did not take part in qualifying. As you can imagine, first person who goes out, it starts at the back, Esteban Ocon. Also out in Q1 were both the Williams, as expected, Zhou Guanyu, and Kevin Magnussen, which wasn't too expected, to be honest. That was a bit of a shock, which of course means his teammate Mick Schumacher has outqualified Kevin Magnussen there. Very interesting. So into Q2, and out in Q2 is Schumacher, unfortunately. Then we have Ricciardo, Vettel, George Russell, and Fernando Alonso. Some really big names in there. Some people you wouldn't expect to go out in Q2, especially the likes of Russell and Alonso, and probably Ricciardo as well. Ricciardo was way down on his teammate, actually. That meant that Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin into Q3. Amazing. And both Alpha Tauris. They must have been listening to me, because I've been saying that they needed to get a shift on, and there they are in Q3. What a run. In Q3, on the final run, Verstappen made a mistake. It kind of robbed us of that barnstorming finish that we like to get at the end of Q3. His lap was still good enough for third place. It was Charles Leclerc that took pole position and Carlos Sainz in second. But I tell you what, you look down a little bit and you see Valtteri Bottas in fifth place in the Alfa Romeo. Incredible. He's ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who qualified sixth. He's ahead of both Mercedes. Heading into the race, of course, a lot of intrigue about how this race was going to go. We did have warnings from the drivers saying it probably wasn't going to be a great race, honestly. The track was very compact and there wouldn't be too much overtaking. And that was kind of reflected in the racing, I feel. We did get a very early overtake. Verstappen took second place off the line. Into the first corner, he managed to get Sainz, and that's Verstappen in second place. The first lap actually had a lot of overtakes. Alonso moving up 4 places to 7th. Ricciardo and Schumacher also gaining 3 places each on that first lap. Incredible stuff. And actually Hamilton and Russell go massively backwards at the start. I think Russell at one point was in 15th place. It's incredible. I thought they were completely out of the race at this point, but spoiler alert, they definitely get back into it. But only a couple laps later, Ricciardo actually starts moving back. You know, I was saying he moved up 3 places. He pretty much lost all 3 of those places, or by lap 3 again. Both Hasses passed him, and he's down into 13th now. Around that time as well is when Hamilton started to put some really good moves on. He took Alonso and Gasly to get him back up to 6th, which is actually where he started, but he's done some good moves to get it back. Ocon also at this time is doing really good moves. He's coming from the back of the grid, obviously brand new car. He broke it, they fixed it, he's coming back. Didn't qualify at all, so he's coming from the back and he's actually moving forward at quite a rapid rate, which is great to see. Zhou retired his car on lap 7, only 7 laps in, which is a bit of a shame. Obviously we didn't really get to see anything of him at all. I'm not sure why that is yet either, really. But it was on lap 9 we saw the lead change hands. Max Verstappen took Charles Leclerc on lap 9, and after that move is where we really saw the race settle down quite a bit. This was definitely the more boring period of the race, that middle period when really nothing goes on. The pit stops weren't even really anything to write home about either. It was massively mixed. You saw people stopping early around lap 10, and it was just 1 here or 2 there, and it was just kind of dribs and drabs for the next 10 laps or so, where people were just kind of, 1 car might come in, or 2 cars might come in, but there's nothing significant going on. We did see Perez lose power at one stage, and they managed to fix the problem on the road. I was certain he was going to be out of the race, especially with all their reliability issues, right? But no, they managed to fix it. He still stayed in 4th. He dropped way off the pace. He was really harassing Sainz the whole time, but he really dropped off the pace. He was now 7 seconds behind the lead. But it's just incredible that they managed to fix that problem. Apparently that would be an ongoing problem throughout the race, where they'd just lose power in the engine. He just couldn't go as hard as he wanted to for the rest of the race, but it stayed out there. It stayed on the track, which is important for Red Bull right now, right? The lead cars started pitting around lap 25. Leclerc came in on lap 25. He was the first of the top 5 to come in, and he came out in 4th place. But then, of course, that triggers the whole cycle, doesn't it? Verstappen came in on the very next lap to cover him off. He's back out in 2nd, so Sainz is leading the Grand Prix now. But then Sainz and Perez come in on lap 28, only 3 laps after Leclerc. Sainz actually has a slow stop, but because of Perez's power issues earlier, it's not enough for Perez to catch up. So we're actually back to a top 4 of Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz and Perez, even after all the pit stops. At this point, we go back into that malaise of like, there's not a lot happening in the race. There was a big section in the middle here where it got quite boring, I felt. There was some like really nice fighting between the Aston Martins and Hasses, but it didn't last very long. The McLarens really seemed to be struggling. They were towards the bottom. They did try something different, Ricciardo's strategy, where they left him out for a long time on the medium tyres, then brought him in, but that didn't really work out for them either. And then things started to get interesting around the lap 40 mark again. I know, right? We've gone through practically 20 laps of nothing. I've just skipped over all of it, but that's what the race was like, unfortunately. Around lap 40, Alonso made contact with Gasly going into turn 1. Alonso came away with a 5-second penalty on that. Fair, that's legit. But then that caused problems for Gasly, as you know, he's trying to sort out, you know, is there anything wrong with my car? What do I need to do? And he managed to hit Norris. Such a strange incident as well. Gasly's off track. He's gone completely off track, being overtaken by absolutely everyone. He's still trying to assess, I'm guessing, what's if anything is wrong with his car. He then comes back onto the track, appears not to notice Norris at all, who's going to blaze past him, and then bam, he hits him. It's tyre to tyre contact, but it completely rips Norris's tyre off, and he goes for a spin. And of course, that's in the middle of this street circuit. That's a safety car. After that incident, obviously Norris can't continue. He's got no tyre on his rim. He gets out of the car. He's out. Gasly does try to continue, but he actually retires before the safety car even comes in, so he can't continue either. It starts off as a VSC, but it does transition like a lap or two later into a full safety car. Surprisingly, this is where it gets a little bit juicy. There are drivers out there who have not stopped yet. And boy, is this a cheap pit stop for them. What a situation. Russell is the main recipient of this. He, obviously, I said earlier, he was down in 15th at one stage. He then gets promoted essentially up to 7th because of this cheap pit stop. Ocon also, obviously, because he was starting at the back with his broken car, benefits massively. He's in the points as well. Both the Aston Martins also benefit a little less than Russell and Ocon, but those guys had not stopped, so they get a nice cheap pit stop because of the safety car. Red Bull play what seems like a really good strategy game here as well. They pit Perez for fresh medium tyres because the Ferraris don't. So the Ferraris stay out, Verstappen also stays out, so those three are on old hard tyres, and Red Bull have pitted Perez for fresh mediums, and they're under safety car conditions. So the restart, Perez is going to be right on those two Ferraris with these fresh medium tyres. It seems like such a smart strategy from them. Of course, he is still suffering with a bit of power loss, so there's a lot of kind of will he, won't he situation coming up. We do see some cars go onto soft tyres, so Ocon, with his change, goes from hard to soft. Ricciardo and Tsunoda also go onto softs. They didn't really need to stop, but, you know, strategy. They were going to try and be racy toward the end. And we go racing again on lap 47. We have a fairly clean restart. I think there was a little bit of a tag further down the field, but a fairly clean restart. And Perez was trying really hard on Sainz. He tried so hard, but Sainz played it really, really well. He defended really, really well, so there was no changes. Wasn't until a little bit later where we saw Bottas go wide. I haven't mentioned Bottas yet, but he was doing such a good job, having such a good race. He was in 5th place, pretty much on his own before the safety car, just, having a nice Sunday stroll. But he goes wide. He loses his 5th place because both the Mercedes were right up behind him. He loses 5th to Hamilton. He loses 6th to Russell. And he's now down in 7th place. Such a shame for Bottas. He was going to beat both of those guys easily if he didn't make that mistake. And after this restart, there were massive fights everywhere. So there was that incident I just mentioned there for Bottas. Verstappen and Leclerc were having a massive fight for the lead. Sainz and Perez obviously for 3rd place. And Russell and Hamilton were having a battle for 5th as well. Russell does take Hamilton in that fight. He is the only one out of those fights that I mentioned who actually gets a place. And that's legit because Russell is on these fresh medium tyres that he's just pitted for. Hamilton is still on his old hard tyres. So it makes a lot of sense. Mercedes let them race as well. And of course, Russell gets that place. It was around this point as well that Perez almost got Sainz. He went for a late lunge into turn 1. And it looked like he got it, but then he just outbroke himself and carried on for a meter or 2 extra, and Sainz coolly just got back through. And that was really that fight done from that point. Perez knew he had that one chance. He tried so hard, but he just couldn't keep it. Later on, we saw Schumacher and Vettel collide. Obviously, that's gut-wrenching for more than just a collision on track. That is master and apprentice. That is adopted father figure and adopted son. That's going to be a hard one for those guys to reconcile with later. Schumacher was on for his first points finish in F1. I would have talked more about him if this incident didn't come up, because he was running solidly in 9th and it looked like he was going to get points. But he hit Vettel. To be fair, Vettel was in front, had the corner, and Schumacher speared him in the side pod. They both did manage to get back to the pits. There was no safety car or anything like that. They both managed to drive back to the pits. Vettel retired the car in the pits. Schumacher got a new nose and did manage to go back out. But this surprise incident did promote Alex Albon into P10 from nowhere. He is that guy this season, isn't he? Where he's just hanging around, floating around just outside the top 10. Hey, if anybody crashes, I'm there, I'm in, I get points. And he's totally done that again this time. And that was pretty much the end of the race. So indeed, Alex Albon and Williams have once again scored points. Incredible stuff. Out front, Max Verstappen wins the Miami Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc comes home in 2nd and Carlos Sainz takes 3rd. Which means every race Verstappen has finished, he has still won. He is still that guy. It's just bemoaning the lack of reliability he has in his car. And fair play to him. I mean, think about the other races. How far ahead could he be if he had reliability in his car, right? Further down, we saw a 5th and 6th place for Mercedes. A good point score for them, especially considering where they were early in the race. A double point score for Alpine as well, although there is a slight asterisk on that because Fernando Alonso is under investigation, or was at the end of the race, so that might drop him out of the points. If he does, it will promote Ricciardo in, and it would give Williams even more points. So, depending on if you're a Williams fan, you might be cheering for that. So at the end of the day, a big question is, was the Miami Grand Prix any good? The first ever Miami Grand Prix, was it any good? And that's a hard question to ask, because if that safety car didn't happen and the last 10 laps didn't happen, I'd say no, it was pretty boring. But the safety car did happen and the last 10 laps did happen, and that was very entertaining. So I definitely think more can be done to make this race a little bit more exciting. Of course, it is going to be around for a little while now. The spectacle of it all was so great. The American races really do that well. So I'm definitely looking forward to Vegas next year as a result too. But the race definitely could have been a little more competitive there in the middle stint. But what did you guys think? What did you think of the first ever Miami Grand Prix? Did you like it? Do you have any thoughts or feelings on how we could change this to make it a little bit better? Let me know in the comments or over on social media at Race Report Pod, and I will catch you in the next one.